Welcome to the Linux Spotlight. This show is dedicated to showing off the best thing about Linux, our community. This community is made up of developers, distro maintainers, YouTubers, and everyday users. Each one plays a vital role in our community, and the goal is to have a discussion with each individual about their journey into Linux and beyond. So join me now as we turn the spotlight on. Hello, I'm your host, Rocco, and with me today, our special guest is Nick from the Linux Experiment.
Hey, guys.
Nick, how are you?
Hey, Rocco.
All right. Nick, I have been trying to get an interview with you for months, and you are a busy guy.
Well, there's been the whole, I'm taking a 1 month long break from the channel, which probably has put something in the gears, but yeah, now I'm back and I'm available.
Nice. I love it. Well, most people know you from your YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. You started this back in February of 2018. Yep. You have 42,000 subscribers, dude. That's amazing.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Well, we're going to get into the channel and how that all started. But before we do, if I asked you, what would you say to who is Nick personally?
Yeah, that's a question I have really a tough time answering. Obviously, I know I am, but I think I'm a pretty much regular guy. I mean, I have a pretty much regular job. I'm a product owner at a startup company. I have plenty of free time, and I do Linux videos on my spare time. I don't have really anything specific to say, but I mean, I suppose I'm a cool guy, I guess, maybe. As far as somebody making videos on a niche OS can be cool anyways. But yeah, I enjoy playing video games. I enjoy watching YouTube videos, making YouTube videos, reading books. I write science fiction, and I do my job every day. Pay my taxes.
There you go.
Yeah, pretty much a regular dude, yeah.
All right, you said you're a product owner of a startup company. What exactly is that for people who don't know?
Yeah, so it's basically almost the same thing as a project manager. So what I do is I work with a graphic designer and a team of developers to make sure that we can develop a web app, which helps connect plane owners, plane pilots, and companies that want to book these planes. And what I do day to day is writing the specifications for the platform, making sure that the mockups are up to snuff, that the UX is good, and that the developers follow these guidelines. And I just test everything afterwards and log in if there's a bug, try to prioritize stuff, and basically define the roadmap and make sure that everything we do is in order.
That is pretty awesome because it actually relates to your YouTube channel where the quality of your content is pretty awesome in that. So that is good that it relates to that. Do you have any hobbies outside of the Linux computer realm?
Well, I wouldn't say maybe hobbies. Well, video gaming is a hobby probably. So yes, I do spend a lot of my free time playing video games on my computer. I own a Mega Drive or Genesis, I think it's called in the US, which I often play on as well. And I do a little bit of sports, like mostly bodyweight training and some surf. But no, apart from that, well, reading and writing some sci-fi books, which none of them have been published yet, so you can't read them.
You should self-publish them.
Yeah, probably. But I'm looking for somebody to translate them into English because I write them in French because that's my main language. And I don't think I have the vocabulary depth to really write in English directly. I don't think I'm good enough to do that. So I would need to find somebody to translate them into proper English. And I haven't looked into that yet.
Okay. Well, I think you should start that process because I think you might surprise yourself. You might have that. You might have that vocabulary. Just saying.
I'll check. I'll see if I can make it work.
All right. Now you made videos in your YouTube channel about Linux at work. But how are people at work are they receptive to Linux? Are they your people you come in contact with, friends, whoever? Do they look at you like you're crazy sometimes?
At first, yeah. At work mainly, because they provided me with a Mac, and we're an all Apple company. Like everybody has an iPhone, everybody has a Mac. Our president and owner and founder has probably an iPad Pro, a MacBook Pro, the latest iPhone. Every time something new gets out, he buys it immediately. And so, when I turned down the Mac and said, I don't want your MacBook Air, I'm going to bring my own computer and I'm going to run Linux, the developers were like, yay, finally, somebody who knows where it's at. And the rest of the team was like, wow, dude, what are you doing? So I had to explain a little bit at first why I wanted to not use a Mac and why I wanted to use Linux. It's been a weird conversation to have because, mostly everybody knew Linux existed. They didn't just discover it. I didn't teach them that it was a new OS. And, they were like, why do you want to use that instead of Mac OS? Can you do everything you can do on Mac? Can you do it on your Linux computer? So I showed them progressively, and now I don't really have any questions or specific issues. I still kept the Mac on the side if I ever need to open a Pages, Keynote, or something document that the iCloud.com portal cannot render correctly. But it's been going well after a few weeks. My friends, on the other hand, still kind of think I'm crazy for using Linux, either at work or on my personal life, because I do game online with them, and some games are not very compatible between cross-playing on Linux and Windows. So mainly we have interruptions during our gaming sessions just because I'm running Linux, they're running Windows, and the two cannot really talk that well.
Yep. Yeah, that does happen. Well, speaking of the work part of it, you made a video about your MateBook 13 and how you installed Elementary on it and you use it at work. So give us an update on how you're coming along with that, and are you as excited using it as you were when you started?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say I'm probably even more excited now because the anxiety part is done. I know I can work on it. It's been probably like 2 or 3 months now. And I know I can do my job on it. I know it's working great. The battery life holds up. I can write my documents, use whatever apps I need to use. It's working. And I'm really excited about it because, it kind of proves to myself as well that I can use Linux to work. Because when I started it, I was very confident outwardly, but inwards I was like, I hope I don't run into too many issues because, it's going to suck if I do because I'm going to lose productivity. My boss is going to kill me. I'm going to look like a loser, basically. So, I didn't want that to happen. But now that I'm certain that I can do my job, I'm actually pretty excited because I can try new apps to try and complement my workflow, improve stuff. And it's the most fun part, I think, that begins now that I'm sure that the work can be done.
Yep. That is a big boundary for some people who want to use Linux at work, is that they don't know, or maybe they can't even use Linux at work. They have to use either Windows or Mac. So that's great that you're able to do that.
Well, it's probably because we're a small company and everybody's pretty cool about stuff. They don't really care what you use or what you decide to use as long as it doesn't affect the quality or the speed at which you do your job. So they're pretty open about it.
Yep. Well, we're going to get into Linux. We're going to get into your channel, gaming, but I think we need to start at the beginning of where you started with computers. So what was the first computer you used and when was that?
It was I think it was a Pentium 3, 333 megahertz, something like 32 megabytes of RAM and a 3 gigabytes hard drive. No graphics card, or maybe a graphics accelerator at the time, I think they were called. It struggled to even play Star Wars Racer, if I remember correctly. So it was a lemon, but it was mainly used by my mother to write the stuff that she needed to do her job. It was, when was it? I think it might have been in 2006, 2004, maybe? Okay. I think so, yeah. So I was pretty old. Most of my friends already had computers back then, and we never really had one because my father used one at work and my mother didn't work before that, so she didn't need one. So at home, we didn't have it. We had the internet probably 5 years after everybody got it. So I've been a late adopter, and the fun fact is the thing that got me to computers is because when we bought the computer, it was supposed to come with a 56K modem. and it didn't work because it wasn't enabled in the BIOS. But the tech support didn't really help us beyond that. They just said, hey, enable it in the BIOS. But we had no idea what the hell that was. So
Yeah.
I started looking up and asking my friends, and I started tinkering. And after a month or two, I finally found what the hell it was, enabled it, it worked fine. And that kind of got me excited to start working with computers. And the initial problem was probably what drew me into this.
See, you get a problem and you overcome it, and it just breeds all kinds of good things.
Yeah, exactly. It feels great when you manage to solve something and you're like, yeah, I did it all myself with the help of 20 people, but yeah, I did it myself.
Well, okay, so you start out on that computer. Do you go into other computers? How long is it in between that you hear about Linux?
Quite a long time, I think. Linux, I think I started using in 2006, something like that. It was my first own computer. It was the first portable computer I bought. And it was a really refurbished, crappy thing that I bought for like 300 euros or something. It was bad, and it was running Windows XP. And at the time, I wanted my Windows XP to look like a Mac, because I really wanted a Mac at the time, but I had absolutely no money to buy that. And so I decided to try and install like theme packs for Windows XP, which completely screwed up the system. I had to reinstall twice. And then I looked up online, how can you make your computer look like a Mac? Like, how does the OS look like a Mac? And I found something that was called Ubuntu, and people were tweaking it, and I was like, hey, this looks nice. Why don't I try it? I tried it. I had problems with my USB Wi-Fi key, obviously, because at the time that was a big problem. And well, when I tried to solve it, I really enjoyed the default GNOME 2 interface, and I stuck to it, and I used it, I think, for 5 or 6 years after that, without really going back to Windows in the meantime.
Wow.
After that, I lost track of Linux because I started working. I bought a new computer. I had stuff to do when I came home, and I just wanted something that I didn't have to tinker with. So I went with Windows 7, I think, at the time. I used that for a few years. And when I came back to Brest, which is the town where I live in, has a really unfortunate name in English, but there you go.
Yep.
I bought a new computer because I had none whatsoever, and I bought it without an OS, and I decided to install Linux on it.
Wow. So you buy this computer, you want to install Linux on it. What is it that you install on it?
It was Elementary OS. It was because I had used it on and off between 2013 and 2018. I had installed it on my computer, but never really kept it. It was just to see how it was progressing, but I always liked the intention behind it. So I thought it would be a good idea to try it again, and it was, because I stuck with it for about a year. I switched to Manjaro after that for 6 or 7 months, and now I'm back to Elementary OS after Manjaro died on me twice in a row. So I decided I'd rather have something more stable, especially since I need to work on it now. So yeah.
Yeah, that happens sometimes. Yeah, I know all about the things dying on you.
Yeah, I bet.
So, you try Elementary OS. You stick with it, but what are the good things about it? What are the bad things about it that you see in it when you first tried it?
Well, good things was the interface was really suiting me, because it was well suited to what I wanted to do. It was simple. There was just a simple dock, simple menu. Apps were basic, and I didn't have to relearn a load of things, because I hadn't used a computer in about a year, like at all, well, except at work. But I hadn't used a personal computer at home for about a year, and I didn't really know how Windows worked at the time, because I was working on a Mac at my regular old job, and I wanted something that looked kind of like it. So it's no secret, Elementary OS is inspired by Mac OS X. Sure, it doesn't function exactly like Mac OS, but it's inspired by it. So the interface was kind of a nice transition period to help me ease into things. And the fact that the apps were simple and the apps were really kind of one task only also helped me to manage it and make sure that everything I did was simple and clear. The bad things, well, I think the base, because when I installed it, it was still based on Ubuntu 16.04, I think, which was old. In 2018, it was old. And so I had problems with some drivers. I had problems with more recent app versions that weren't available. I could solve some of these issues with using Flatpak and stuff like that, but it wasn't perfect. So yeah, afterwards, when they updated it to running on 18.04, it was a lot better. But yeah, the first steps were kind of problematic.
Right. So do you, right now, do you use Windows or Mac in any way?
I don't. I still have a Windows partition on my main computer. I had to remake a small partition just to play Warhammer Total War 2, because that's a game you can buy on Steam. It's supposed to be compatible between Windows, Mac, and Linux. You buy the same game on Steam and you have it on 3 platforms, but the Linux client cannot play with the Windows client, and that's almost the only game I play with my friends these days. So I reinstalled the Linux Windows partition. I'm guilty. I'll admit it. I did it. But yeah, that's the only thing I use it for. Basically, I have nothing else installed on that computer, on that partition, except Warhammer Total War and Steam. Apart from that, no, I don't use my Mac anymore at work, except when I really have a problematic file that I can't open anywhere else. And no more Windows apart from launching Steam and Total War.
Well, don't tell anybody, but I have a Windows drive on this main machine. No, I get a hard time about it all the time, but there are just certain games that won't play on Linux or don't play as well on Linux, so I'm okay with having that on another drive. I think I go back to you use the best tool for the job type thing, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to sacrifice some games. Like my friends sometimes come to me and say, "Hey, this released. This looks awesome. Let's play this." And I look it up. It's like, no, it's rated as garbage on ProtonDB. There's no way I'm going to run that on Linux. I'm like, okay, well, no, I'm sorry, I won't play it because I don't want to encourage that. The fact that the game I play with my friends, like Total War Warhammer 2, is I already bought it on Linux and I bought the Linux version. So playing it on Windows doesn't make me encourage the developer to release more games only for Windows. So I don't see any issue with that. But obviously, yeah, if you want to play something and it doesn't run on Linux, there's no real reason to not play it on another OS.
Yep.
Apart from fanaticism or maybe really strong ethical concerns. But
Yep. And that's actually a big issue right now. Recently, Rocket League came out, or Psyonix came out and said that Rocket League is no longer going to be available on Linux.
Yeah.
And, like some people are upset about that. Some people want a refund. I think it comes down to the fact that, to me, it doesn't really matter with the reasoning behind we don't really own our games anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
You think you're going to buy this game and you could play it in 20 years' time, but that's not really the case anymore.
Yeah, probably not, yeah, because mostly the systems we'll be trying to play them on in 20 years. We'll probably not be able to launch them anyways. And if Steam closes, I lose basically 90% of my games. So yeah, people need to realize that we don't live in a society where you own so much stuff anymore. You basically rent them and they make you feel like you own them, but you don't really.
Right. Well, going back to Elementary, that's the OS that you choose to use. Have you done a lot of distro hopping and trying out other distros in between that time?
Yeah, well, for the channel, obviously, I had to try a lot of stuff because I talked about a bunch of distributions. But personally as well, yeah, I tried a few. I think I tried Solus, which was pretty nice, well-stocked, well-built. I tried Manjaro, Zorin OS, obviously Ubuntu, Kubuntu, KDE Neon, Deepin. I didn't stray too far away from the Ubuntu-based distros, though. I know apt-get, I know Debian packaging. I'm more comfortable with that and with the command line that it uses. I did an Arch install once, which was bothersome, and I didn't really like that. But I understand why people would want to tinker with that. It's just not my thing. And yeah, I think I tried Fedora as well, yeah. And the ones I really haven't tried are XFC using distros. I haven't tried XFC like at all, ever. Mate either, and I don't think I've used OpenSUSE ever.
Well, both XFCE and Mate are really, really good. You should give them a try one of these days.
Yeah, I have a video ID stored somewhere called XFCE Complete Tour, and I've been putting it off for like a year, but I really need to get to it.
So if Elementary just vanished tomorrow, is there one other distro that you would just like lean towards or go to?
I'd probably try and use a KDE Neon or something using Plasma, because every time I use that, I really like how it works. I like how it's configurable. I like how you can just tweak it to your liking. The only problem I have is the applications there seem to me that they're kind of broken or not looking right and very complex. Even with the defaults configured by default, maybe they look okay, but once you display any menu, you see like 20,000 options for the same thing, or at least it's kind of named like the same thing.
Yes.
And I really want to use it because I really find it's a cool project. It's really nice, well made, and there's tons of news and evolutions every week. But I think I would try to use something running Plasma, probably Manjaro again, because I really liked it when I used it. Having access to the AUR without having the hassle to install Arch is really a good thing, I think.
Yep. Manjaro really does a good KDE version. Yeah. So, yep.
Yeah, I tried it when I was using Manjaro GNOME. I installed the Plasma desktop as well, but I never managed to change the theme. It's stuck on the green theme that they use, which I didn't really like, and I kind of broke the system trying to change it.
I'm all too familiar with that. All right. So with we talked about it earlier. You made a video about Linux at work, and you talk about elementary OS, but you also talk about having a small issue with it. Can you tell us your thoughts on the App Center and that kind of issue where it's sort of a vendor lock-in type issue?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing I only realized when using elementary OS at work, because when it was on my personal computer, I didn't really need to use a Notes app or any stuff like that. Now that I need like work-related applications, or at least apps I use in a work setting, if I think about switching distros, I don't want to have to switch applications again and migrate all my notes to something else. And I realized that some of the apps I've been using on elementary OS are a little bit harder to find on other platforms than the App Center. Like Notes app, I thought it wasn't available. People told me that it was available on Flatpak, but apparently it has issues there, like the compositing just doesn't work right. There are problems. And so, I realized that using these applications and depending on the App Center kind of locks me into elementary OS, because I need to use these applications if I don't want to migrate, copy, paste stuff everywhere.
Yep.
And so if I leave elementary OS, I'm going to have a harder time migrating these data to other applications. So I'm not sure how I feel about that. I like the applications. They're nice. They're well designed mostly, and they work fine. I haven't encountered many bugs, which is probably because they're one-task applications, so they're not as complex as some other stuff.
Yep.
But migrating all of this would be a pain. And in the meantime, on the other hand, I think maybe it's blocking me a little bit, because I'm thinking I would like to try other distros at work, but I really don't want to go through the pain of copying, pasting, and doing all that stuff. So I'm a bit annoyed by the fact that I can't switch as easily as I would want to, so I should probably try and do it progressively, like using elementary OS, changing some apps to use more open stuff that is available everywhere, and maybe then I'll take the plunge and try something else.
Well, I think it's an unforeseen consequence of using elementary. They do a great job of promoting the App Center to developers to develop specifically on elementary itself. So it's like they're great apps and they work well, and then you start to use them, and then it's like, well, if you do go to switch, it makes it hard. So it's like an unforeseen consequence of it. I don't know if it's necessarily a bad thing, but
it's not even really the fault of the developers or the elementary OS devs, because they don't prevent people from releasing their apps on the App Center and on other platforms either. They're really open about this. You can release on the App Center and everywhere else you like. I think most developers now are starting to ship apps as Flatpak, so I think the issue might vanish pretty soon, especially since elementary OS now supports Flatpaks and will probably support Flatpak in the App Center directly for developers to ship their elementary apps. So I think the issue might vanish pretty soon, because I don't see a developer willing to only limit their application to elementary when they can ship it as a Flatpak on elementary OS and on other platforms. So I don't think it's going to be an issue for too long.
Well, we talked about your YouTube channel earlier, and I want to get kind of deep in the woods with it. You started in 2018.
Yeah.
You've made over 216 videos.
That much?
Yes. You have over 4 million views on your videos.
Oh, well, oh, yeah.
42,000 subscribers again. What made you make that jump from being a Linux user to becoming a content creator and posting videos on YouTube?
It was boredom. But when I moved back to Brest, I haven't lived in Brest for like 8 years, maybe 9 years. I was living in Paris. I had pretty much lost touch with all my friends. And I had a divorce that didn't end that well. Obviously, it's a divorce, so yeah. I decided to move back to Brest because, well, first, it's a less expensive city than Paris, obviously. And there was a great job opportunity there. And I wanted to get back closer to my family, which lived there at the time, and with my friends, which I hadn't seen in a long time. So I moved back there. I had to sell almost everything I had, including my computers, to pay the divorce and to make the move back here, because it's like 7 or 8 hours drive from Paris to Brest. And so I came in my very empty flat, and none of my friends were available, and I had literally nothing to pass the time except a gaming console and no money to buy games for it. So, so I thought to myself, I don't want to just sit on the couch and consume videos from Netflix or YouTube. I want to create something. So I started writing, and then I thought to myself, why not learn to edit videos? And since I did not have any webcam or really any DSLR or whatever, I just had my phone, which was a crappy one at the time. I thought, yeah, let's make screencasts, edit them, and try to talk about something useful. And since I just had a Linux OS, I thought maybe people would be interested in seeing how to use Linux for beginners, because there were a lot of videos aimed towards more tech-savvy people. Linux videos aimed towards people who already knew Linux and exposing them some new tricks. But for beginners, I always thought it was kind of hard to find stuff. So I thought, yeah, let's try to make something for beginners and learn to edit videos. So I installed PTV on my, which is a video editor for GNOME, and I started editing videos. I moved to Kdenlive afterwards, but yeah, mainly it was because I was bored and I didn't want to just sit in my couch and not do anything.
Hey, that's a good motive, though. So I believe, and I tell people all the time when they talk about starting a channel, that your name is pretty important because it's going to be your brand, and you don't want to be constantly changing your name.
Yeah.
So you want to pick a decent one. It would seem like from the outside, your experimentation in Linux was the inspiration for your name, but how did that all play out?
Well, I wanted to reflect the fact that it was an experiment for me to try and make videos about Linux and making those videos on Linux. So I didn't want to edit them on a Windows partition or on a Mac or whatever. I wanted to use Linux to make and edit the videos about Linux. And I also thought it was a nice way to suggest that people can experiment with Linux. Just because you try it and install it doesn't mean you have to stick with it if you don't like it. So I think it was a way to not be too pushy about, switch to Linux right now. It was more try it and see what you feel. And the weird thing is, I only looked up on YouTube if the name was available, but the fact is there already is a website called the Linux Experiment, which is a place where people can write articles and they share other stuff, but I didn't know about that when I created the channel. So they contacted me afterwards, and they were really nice. They didn't ask me to change the name or whatever. They just asked if they could share some of my videos on the website. But
awesome.
Had I known, I would probably have picked something else, because it's a bit confusing to have that website. Apparently they have requests from people telling them, hey, you made a video about this, but it's not their videos.
Right.
If I had to do it again, I'd probably try and find something else. But honestly, I spent probably a few hours trying to come up with that, and I was pretty happy that it was available. So
yeah,
probably not gonna change it now.
No, but it's harder to come up with a name, not only just because you want it to be the name that represents you, but you got to make sure that the website's available and the name is available everywhere else. It's just a lot of work.
It's super hard to find something that is available on the platform where you want to output your content. And if you think afterwards, let's make a podcast. Oh no, that's already taken. Oh, let's make a website. Oh, that's already taken as well. And so you try to come up with really weird terminations like not .com, but .net, .fr, whatever.
Yeah.
You have to really work around it. So that's why my website is called the linuxexp.com and not the linuxexperiment.com, because, had I known, I would have picked another name.
Yep. So your first video that you released, It was February 21st of 2018.
Mm-hmm.
It was titled Elementary OS Switching to Linux. It was just I think it was just over 2 minutes long, but it was probably the start of your channel. So did you realize back then that when you made that video that your channel would grow what it is today?
Absolutely not. Because I rewatched it when you sent me the list of stuff you wanted to talk about. I rewatched it and I was like, no, really, did I put that online? Because it was just 2 minutes of me rambling without much editing, except for the parts where I fumbled the words, because obviously I'm not a native English speaker, and it was just me moving the mouse cursor in the screen and not editing anything between the various shots. It wasn't that great, but apparently people kind of liked it. But no, I'd never thought it was going to be something that brought me to where I am now. Not saying I'm done with the channel or whatever, but I never thought it would grow that fast, honestly. And that video for me was like super stressful because it was the first thing I was putting out online, and it was like, oh, let's hope people don't judge me too harshly or don't criticize me too much, or how am I going to take it if people say it sucks? It was a stressful moment, and the reception was, very small. I think it had maybe 100 views in a few months, so it didn't grow that fast. But the comments were really nice and really happy and really motivated me to keep doing that.
Yep. Well, I talked to people today who want to start YouTube channels, and their concerns are, I don't know where I'm going to go with it. I don't know what content I want to make yet. But I think you did the most important thing, which was just take the first step and make a video. And you can grow the channel from there as far as whatever direction you want to go with the content. So, yes, that was the start of the channel that is today looked at like one of the highest quality YouTube channels for Linux videos out there, dude.
Well, I don't know if that's really true, because honestly, when I look at the stuff I make, and it's not false modesty or anything, but really when I look at the stuff I make, I don't think I have progressed all that much in a year. The transitions are still pretty much the same. The process for me to create those videos is pretty much the same. The structure is pretty much the same all the time as well. So I changed the subjects, but I don't think I am really progressing anymore in any significant way. So I'm gonna have to try to look at some other formats, because I feel like I'm starting to get a little bit stale. It's the editing process. I need to find some more stuff to not put some shiny stuff everywhere, but try to make it maybe a little bit more rhythmed, or I don't know.
Yep. So what is your favorite video that you have put out there?
It's the GNOME versus KDE one, just because I had so much fun making it move. It's a video where I put side-by-side comparisons, and when I talk about GNOME, there's one that grows, the other one goes back. It was really fun to make, and it took me a super long time. I think I edited that for 10 hours or something. It was terrible. But I really like it. I think it's still one of the best ones I produced. The thumbnail is very crappy, but I still need to improve my thumbnails. They're really bad. But the quality of the video, I think, was pretty good. So it's probably my favorite one, just because it's the one I used the most tricks from Kdenlive to try and get something looking good and feeling smooth, and it was fun.
Yep. Well, that goes back to the quality thing. You said you don't consider yourself as being the top quality of videos, but I think those types of things that you said, hey, I had fun making this. There aren't many people out on YouTube making that type of stuff and putting that much effort and design into it. So
yeah, maybe.
You've done videos on a ton of different topics, though. You have the Linux news videos that you go and you give news that's happened in the last couple weeks or month. Mm-hmm. You recently started creating some vlog type videos about your life. And me personally, I really enjoy that vlog type of video, because it gives you a glimpse into your life personally. It lets the viewer kind of get to know you without you knowing them. And I guess what I'm asking is, what made you decide to start the vlog videos?
I wanted to get a little bit more personal on some matters, because most of my videos are faceless. It's just a screen that I record. I don't show my face. I don't have my little picture up top or whatever. And I wanted to have something that felt more like a discussion, like I know people can't answer back directly while I'm filming, but talking about a Linux subject and then a personal subject, I think was a good format because people could listen to the Linux part, and if they didn't care about me personally, they could just stop at the middle of the video and not listen to the rest. And people who wanted to learn a little bit more about my life, what I do, and where I want to take the channel, and yeah, they can listen to the second part. So the thing is, I don't need somebody to talk to that's about those things. I have a group of friends that I now see them very regularly. So I'm not as bored as I used to be. But it still feels nice because I start to recognize people that leave me comments. You know, there are names that come back, and you know them, and you're like, hey, this guy always say thank you for the video on each video. It's super nice, and I try to think about them not as numbers, but as people that watch the channel. And so I think it's important for me to tell them a little bit about myself. Whether they're interested in it or not, I don't really know. But I think it's nice because it establishes kind of a relationship. It's not always me telling people things. It's also me opening up and being open to, well, good remarks as well as criticisms and maybe even some judgment. I don't know. I haven't had that kind of comments yet, but well, it was nice to me.
I think that's a pretty important aspect of it, is you getting in front of the camera and letting people connect with you directly. Mm-hmm. It's great to have videos that you make where you're seeing all of this stuff going on, but I think the more personal aspect of it is when people see you and get to know you as a person. I think that's a great part of it.
Yeah, I mean, cynically, I also think that obviously, if you show yourself and talk about yourself, well, people will probably grow also a little bit more attached to you as a person and not see your content as just tutorials and something that helps them when they need it. It kind of builds a relationship with the audience. So obviously, yes, it's also kind of a marketing trick to put yourself out there. It's easier for people to relate to you and keep coming back and watching the videos. That's certain. But it's also important to me to open up about things, and I think probably it's easier for me to open up to like 42,000 people, and obviously not everybody watches, but 42,000 people about stuff than maybe to one close friend.
Yep. Yeah, it does seem easier sometimes to do that. Well, going back to the quality of your channel, I look through when I talk to people who have YouTube channels, I will look through the progression of their channel, and that's anything from the thumbnails themselves to content. And you can, if you look through it, you can see the progression of how much the quality has gone up, and your channel is no different. I mean, it's actually one of the fastest growing, I would say, quality content that you see out there. And I have to say that people put you in that aspect of having that premiere quality. Do you have any interest in doing it for a living?
I'm not sure. I mean, if it happens, it happens. It would be nice, but I'm not pursuing it specifically. I like my day job. I like having colleagues. I like going to work. I like having a transition between being in my home and being at work. And I like meeting people every day. And if I did the channel full time, I probably would lose a big aspect, a big part of that. Because I would do videos in my house, so I would probably not get out as often. And I wouldn't have colleagues, obviously, because that channel is gonna be a one-man operation, whatever I make. I mean, we're talking about Linux. It's never gonna reach 10 million subscribers, I don't think. And so if it happens, if at some point I reach the magical number that allows me to be self-sufficient and running the channel full-time and make a living out of it, I'll probably give it a shot. That's for sure. But I'm not pursuing it specifically. I try to not look at the numbers all that much. I used to do it a lot when I started. When I saw the first uptake, when I passed the first 1,000 subscribers, I was like, yeah, this is going great. It's awesome. And I started making a spreadsheet, counting numbers from month to month, looking which videos worked, which didn't. I went into full marketing mode and trying to find topics that worked and some that didn't, and analyzing where people left off in the videos. And after a few months, it just made the whole channel not fun to do because it felt like work. So I tried to put progressively all of that on the side. Obviously, I still look at some numbers, the subscribers and the latest video, how is it doing compared to the previous ones, but I'm not analyzing it in a real marketing sense, and I don't let the numbers drive the content that I do. So I think as long as I don't do that, there's probably little chance that I would move on to a full-time YouTuber, because you kind of need to go with the flow as well and do the stuff that people want to see. So you can't really take that chance and make that video about that super niche thing you like, but nobody will care about. You have to have some good performing videos for your sponsors to make sure that they get their return of our investment.
Yep.
I don't think I would have as much fun to do the channel if it was a day job and my full-time job.
Well, I think that's pretty important, because I usually tell people you have to do the content that you want to do and not something that you think needs to be done, because you won't enjoy it. And that will come through. That will come through in the video, that people will see that you're not enjoying it and you're just doing it just to grow a channel as a business, rather than putting content out there that you love. And yeah, I definitely think that is one of the biggest things people need to know if they're going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think sometimes people want to, they see the opportunity, like obviously I'm thinking about, what would I do if the channel reached that point where I could live only doing that? And that's a thing I would like to reach, and I would like to try, obviously. Maybe it wouldn't stick, but I would like to try. But I think a lot of people just get carried away and think, okay, now this is starting to work. So to make more money and make it to the point where I can do it as my job, I need to start working on this topic because that has worked really well, and not this topic, which I like, but let's leave it by the side. I don't want to do that. Really. I want to have fun. I want my videos to stay focused and clear and not ramble on for hours, which is probably what I'm doing right now. But when I edit my videos, I try to be concise and to the point. That's not a quality I have in my regular life. But yeah, I don't want to lose that drive, that thing that makes making YouTube video fun.
Yep, agreed. So you had mentioned earlier that you haven't had a lot of bad comments, but being in the public eye, especially on YouTube, there's no shortage of feedback. Let's just say it that way.
Yeah.
Some of it's good, some of it's bad, some of it's pretty ugly. There are some awesome people who comment on videos and are very supportive and do it in the right way. Like, even if they're criticizing you, they're doing it in a constructive way, and that can be helpful. But how do you deal with trolls who just want to, tear down the video because they feel like it?
Well, I don't get that many real trolls. I mean, there are a lot of people that disagree with what I'm saying, but there are not many people that are just bashing the video itself. Like, if I talk about Ubuntu, obviously I'll get the comments, Ubuntu is trash, don't use Ubuntu. Or if I talk about Deepin, there's going to be, welcome to China Spyland, or whatever. And you should use Arch, GNOME is trash, you should use KDE. Yeah, sure, you get these guys, obviously, all the time, but you learn to ignore kind of that. They want to use that, they use that, they do what they want. I don't really have that many comments saying, oh, your video was terrible, that was trash, that was bad. But there are a few that really stuck with me. Like when I made the first review of Elementary OS 5.0, I did it kind of in a hurry, and I forgot half the features. So I made a video, and I realized after that I forgot half the features. So in the same night after I published the first one, I stayed up until 2 a.m. and I whipped out another video, and I called it part 2. I published it, and people were saying, oh, this video felt rushed, you were talking too fast, it felt like you were catching up after something. And that made me realize that, you should take your time, you should wait. And these comments have really stuck with me. Every time I do a video now, I'm try to talk slowly, try to explain things calmly, because if you are trying to whip out the video in 2 hours because afterwards you have to meet some friends, people are going to notice. So do something calmly when you have the time. But yeah, I've been fortunate. I don't have that many comments bashing the video, bashing me as a person or the content. It has been pretty friendly. I think the fact that I don't show my face that often also makes it harder for people to try and criticize or attack me on my physical appearance or whatever, my taste or my face, my beard,
right? Whatever
annoys people these days.
Yeah.
But I've been fortunate about that. And even the darker side of the Linux community, the guys that really attack everything that's not 100% open source, that want you to use Arch or Linux from scratch because that's the only real way men use their computers or whatever. Well, no, they don't come to see me. They probably exist, but they don't hang around me.
Well, I think that is really important. You said that you had made that video and you didn't have all of the features listed, or you forgot some of the features. There is so much work that goes into making even a short video about a desktop environment, about a distro or anything, because you want to get all that information right. You want to put out the right information and maybe the information that people don't know about the new release. So that is a ton of work that you put into it, anybody who makes videos. So it's actually nice to hear whether it's good or bad, likes versus dislikes. And even if you dislike the video, that's okay, because it's still conversation. It's still constructive criticism, So
yeah, I used to take that very personally. Like I publish a video, 5 minutes afterwards, there's a dislike, and I'm like, oh no, what did I do wrong? Oh, it's probably that place that I didn't edit it correctly. I mispronounced that word, so I should have went back and corrected it. That's probably it. Or maybe I rambled on for too long about this subject or that subject. And you can drive yourself crazy with that thing. You can really run into circles in your mind and try to find why people dislike the video. And the reality is, everybody's not gonna like what you make, and that's okay.
Yes.
And when I got these comments like, this video felt rushed, you forgot half the features, you didn't talk about X, Y, Z. At first I was very angry, and I was gonna reply, hey, do you know how much time I spent on this? And I thought, no, don't get angry, they're right. You forgot half the stuff, and sure, you put some time, but you forgot the stuff. So now you have to correct that and make something else.
Yep. I think that's an awesome way to look at it. So if you were to, you've looked at many distros. If you were to give a distro to a non-technical user, somebody who's just going to browse the web, actually most users in today's world, which one would it be? Would it be Elementary OS?
I don't know. I think I would probably give them Ubuntu, because that's the thing that most people write tutorials for. You find almost every app has a deb package or something that you can install, or a snap or anything. I think it's the easiest one to get into, just because sometimes you can find even more results looking up a problem followed by the keyword Ubuntu than you can find by searching the same expression with Linux afterwards. So people might not know Ubuntu as much as they know Linux, but in my mind, when you look something up and when you look at the size of the community, I think Ubuntu is the right way to go for somebody who wants to get into Linux and have an easy way to find solutions online anyways.
Yep. Agreed. It's definitely, you're definitely going to find more info out there on it. So, so you made a video back in May of 2019, and it was called Getting Sidetracked.
Yeah.
And it was a very personal video. You opened up about a lot of things that most people would not feel comfortable opening up and about. I love this video, and because it's you saying, hey, I got sidetracked, but I'm getting back on track. I'm definitely going to make changes to fix this. I did this maybe not so much wrong, but I lost focus or whatever, and I'm going to do it right. And I think more people need to see videos like that, not just in Linux, but for their personal lives. Because, we talk about Linux and YouTube or whatever, but really it comes down to people and the personal touch of everything, because that's what life is about. Not life is not about Linux.
No,
can you tell us?
No.
Can you tell us more about that video and how you came to make it?
Yeah. So when I made it, I had been in Brest for about a little bit more than a year, I think. I had started to digest my divorce, my move back. I had found my friends again, but I had let myself go physically and mentally. Because when I left Paris, it was not only because I had divorced, not only because I wanted to get back to my family, my friends, and live a simpler life. I found minimalism, like not a religion, but something quite close to it, and I had grown more conscious about the environment, about consuming too much stuff, about using too much electricity, which is ironic because I run a YouTube channel, which is probably not the most economically important hobby, but yeah. And I had lost focus on that in a year and a half. I had found my friends, I had some new hobbies, I was having fun, and so I started smoking again. I started drinking, well, not heavily because that would be lying, but I started going out, drinking a little bit too much, and I started falling back into my old habits of not being a very good person, because when I was younger, I was kind of a douche, and I had tried to escape that a little bit, and I tried to make changes in my life, in my personal life, in my outlook on other people, trying not to judge people, trying not to be so aggressive, so angry all the time. And it had been a journey, and I was feeling like I was starting to fall back into that again. And thankfully, I caught it before it became like too dangerous for me or my personal life or my personal relationships or whatever. But I felt like I needed to talk about that to somebody, and at the time the natural way for me was doing it through the channel. It just felt the right way to do it, because my friends wouldn't really understand that, and my mother didn't really know that aspect of how I used to be. So I thought, these guys don't really know you personally, so well, you're telling them you make a positive change, they're not going to judge you for that, obviously.
Yep.
They didn't know you before, they'll know you a little bit better after, and I didn't see anybody saying, "Hey, shut up, dude, just give us the Linux." But I didn't think people would react like that, and obviously they didn't. So I just wanted to find another way to hold myself accountable as well. I decided to make these changes. I decided to stop smoking, to stop drinking all that much, to do my exercise again regularly, and try to be a better person every day, and try to be more focused on my channel, on my job, on my friends, on my family. And the fact that I was talking to, well, less people than they are subscribed now to the channel, but still, I think it was like 10,000 people at the time. I thought, it's a way to hold myself accountable, to make sure that when I go back to the channel, I can see the intention I had at the time, and I can reevaluate like a year after, did I lose focus or did I keep my focus?
Yep. I think, again, it has that underlying message that many people need to hear, that it is about your life and you can make changes. You're not locked into, even if you've made mistakes, you're not locked into that. So definitely an important message for everybody to hear.
Well, it felt really good to put it out and to say it out loud. So it's not my most successful video, because obviously it's not talking about Linux, it's talking about me. But I think the people were really receptive, and I got a lot of comments like, thank you, this video hit me right at the right time, and thank you for making this, and it felt really good.
Well, it may not be your most successful video, but it may have been one of your most important videos.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
All right, so if somebody came up to you and asked you, hey, I'm going to look at becoming a YouTube content creator, what are some of the obstacles you've encountered? Or maybe what advice would you give them to say, hey, I've done this way. Here's what I've learned. Here's what can help you.
I'll start by saying don't overthink it, because you tend to try and get caught up in all the little details, like, oh, but I don't have a good camera, or I don't have a good microphone, or my computer is not very powerful, I can't really edit videos on it, or I need to pay a subscription to software X to be able to edit my videos. Or I would say, just start it with whatever you have on hand. I think, sure, the format and the form that you give your video or your content is important, but the most important thing is always the message. Like, that's what I found with my Linux news videos, for example. I only show screen caps of web pages and that. And I think the real importance in this video is the audio, not really the video part. And so basically I could show like pictures of dancing cats and it would work all that well, probably. It would probably work even better, honestly, but
cats are pretty popular, I'm just saying.
I think that might even not be such a bad idea.
The little ideas come from small things.
Exactly. But no, don't get too caught up in the details. Just start something, wait for some feedback, and adjust accordingly. And when you feel like you really need to pass a barrier, that your hardware or your software that you're using is blocking you to advance or to do better stuff, then maybe think of buying some more important stuff, like a real camera, a real microphone, or a better computer. But to begin, just use whatever you have on hand, and be yourself, do your stuff. It's easy to say, not that easy to do in front of a camera. Being yourself is a very, very generic phrase. And oftentimes when you look directly into the eye of the camera, you feel like a different person. You feel like a little bit more timid, a little bit more shameful.
Yep.
But just go ahead, do it, and don't overthink it. That's the first advice. And also, as I said before, don't get too caught up in the numbers. It's going to take time for the channel to grow, for the podcast, whatever content you want to produce. It's going to take time for it to grow because there are a lot of people making content everywhere. There are a lot of Twitch streamers, YouTubers, and podcasters, and you're going to have a hard time being noticed and discovered. The channels or the podcasts that grow over time from 0 to 1 million in a year are super rare. And mainly these are people that already have another platform to help push their stuff, or they have a name that is linked to something else, or they already have dabbled into video marketing or content production. It's rare to see somebody that hasn't done any of that or has nobody backing him to just grow at that rate. It's rare. It happens, but it's rare. So don't expect to be making a living off your content in a year. It's probably never going to happen in a year.
Yep. Definitely some good advice. You had, in your early days of your channel, you had a lot of gameplay videos.
Yep.
And they slowly, I won't say they faded away, but maybe they got mixed in with more content, other content. Is that because you were focusing on other content, or did you just not want to do gameplay videos anymore?
No, I really like making gameplay videos, and I would really like to make them again, but I think that's an example of where I let myself be influenced by the numbers, because the gameplay videos were doing like a tenth, probably a tenth as well as the other videos were doing. I was getting like 150 views on those videos when I was getting like 1,500 on some others. So they fell by the wayside. They were easier to make, and they were fun to make. And I want to make them again, but I think the YouTube algorithm doesn't really like it if you get a video that gets a lot of views, then the videos that get almost 0 views, and you go like that in a seesaw. It doesn't like it, and it tends to just not recommend your content as much. And at the time, I was really focused on the numbers. That was when I had my spreadsheet, and I was trying to make stuff go right and grow fast. And so these videos just were, I just stopped making them. I just even stopped them very abruptly because there's a series about Half-Life 2 that I never even finished. I'm probably going to start making them again, but I don't know if I'm not going to put them on a second channel, probably.
Okay. Well, those gameplay videos are great, and I think they give a really good insight to you and your humor, because if you listen to these videos,
very rude and vulgar humor,
you get to listen to what you're saying, and you're commenting on what's happening in the game, and I think it's awesome. So
yeah, it's very first degree. Like I see something, I say what it is, and I use pretty much swear words. Like 1 out of 2 words is a swear word, so they're not very advertiser friendly either.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, you've mentioned many times about gaming. So we all know that you are a gamer. Do you have a specific genre that you want to play?
I really like grand strategy games, like stuff where you manage your whole empire, provinces, cities, armies, and whatever. So the likes of Stellaris, Imperator Rome, or Crusader Kings, or Total War games. I really enjoyed this type of gameplay where you just build from nothing to something big. It's really fun to play, I think. I did enjoy FPS before, but the more I play them, the less I find them interesting. Because it's always the same gameplay mechanic, like playing the same Call of Duty every year is really not my cup of tea, but I can understand why people like them. It's just not for me. I like story-driven games as well, RPGs. Like I had blast playing The Witcher 1, 2, and 3, the Mass Effect games, and I'm playing Divinity Original Sin 2 with my brothers, so on every Sunday we play for 2-3 hours. It's like playing a real pen and paper RPG, but on a video game. It's really fun. But I need a story, something to drive me, either a story that I make myself or a story that is told. Just playing online multiplayer is really not my thing. I almost never play competitive multiplayer.
Nice. Well, I mean, I am into FPS games and I am into the Call of Duty games. But I did really like a few that were, I do like a story, but I think in my likes, I want half a story and half action. So like Half-Life 2 was absolutely awesome. I loved that game. I think it's one of the best games of all time. I really like Middle of Earth series, and the Shadow of War. It's old now, I guess you could say, but I still love playing it. So
they were really good.
All right, so we have to unfortunately get back to Linux, dude.
Fine.
So what is your workflow like? Do you have a hardware related workflow, or is it is it keyboard driven, or is it software driven? Do you have like a certain set of programs you need to install when you first install an operating system?
So I'm not really keyboard driven. Like a lot of people are recommending me some tiling window managers, and that's something I know I could never use because I'm a bad touch typer. Like I really suck. I use like one finger here and another one here, and it's like I feel like an old person sometimes. But no, I don't use the keyboard that much. A few shortcuts that I memorize, but I'm more software dependent. Yeah, I tend to build habits quickly, but I tend to have a hard time switching away from them. So once I get used to a software or a specific piece of software, I have a hard time trying to relearn something else that is similar but not exactly the same. I need a few things installed when I start. Obviously, everything related to Flatpak, because I like to have my apps up to date. So if the distro doesn't ship with Flatpak by default, I need that. LibreOffice is a staple for me because that's where I write all my books. And Kdenlive, obviously, for editing the videos. OBS, which is what I use to record the screen. And the default GNOME sound recorder, which is what I use to record the audio for everything I do, which is a very simple program. Obviously, Steam as well. Mm-hmm. And my pCloud client as well, because that's where I sync everything, all my files, all the video files from the channel. That's where I store everything up. Apart from that, I think I could pretty much change anything else without too much hassle. But these, I don't see myself getting rid anytime soon. Yeah. In terms of hardware, I don't really use anything specific. Like if my mouse or my keyboard just died tomorrow, I would probably buy another one, not specifically the one that I used. I'm not that tied to it. I do use my phone quite a lot when I need to record myself with a basic Amazon tripod, whatever, it costs $20. And I think the Blue Yeti is the microphone I'm using. I have two of them, one for the office and one that I'm using right now in the living room. And I really like these microphones. I like the sound they make. They're not the best ones. They tend to pick up a lot of background noise, but I really like how they look and I like how they feel. So maybe if these died, I would probably buy another one.
Very nice. Very nice. I had a Blue Yeti for the longest time, and it is a great sounding mic. Yeah. And the only reason that I switched from it was because of that picking up a lot of that background noise.
Yeah, it tends to really reflect the sound and the environment on it. And I guess for more interviews or audio-focused stuff, it's not that great.
Yeah. So is there any software that's currently not available on Linux that you would like to see come to Linux?
Not specifically something I would use, but I think Microsoft Office. That's the thing that needs to come to Linux to lift a huge barrier for a lot of people to be able to jump in. Because basically what you see people missing is the Adobe programs and Microsoft Office. And weirdly, people are more willing to try alternatives to the Adobe programs than to Microsoft Office. Although I think that the Adobe programs are a lot more advanced than they have a lot more difference between them and the free available alternatives than Microsoft Office has with LibreOffice. But the big barrier seems to be Microsoft Office. And since they're starting to bring Teams and they already have Skype, I mean, maybe at some point they will bring it. They seem kind of on track to start supporting more platforms than just Windows and Mac. So we might see that happen anytime soon, but I don't think Adobe will ever port their programs to Linux. I would be very, very surprised.
I don't think they have a reason to port their programs to Linux. I mean, they're like, we talk about it and we talk about Linux, and the people that you hang around with talk about, hey man, that would be great. But like, I don't even think it's on their radar to port it.
No, because there was that I think it was a user voice forum where they asked for feature requests, and I think it was Jason Evangelo that really boosted the request for Adobe Premiere on Linux, and it got a lot of votes, but their answer was basically, we know you got boosted by somebody who has a lot of notoriety, and people want that, we understand, but we're going to evaluate the business need to do it. And I don't think they're going to find a real business need to do it. It's the eternal circle, like not enough people on Linux, so no programs, so not enough people on Linux. It's just a never-ending circle, yeah. And I don't see them bringing that in anytime soon. If you see how they optimize their programs for the Mac, which is basically they don't, I don't see them porting something to another platform with a different set of APIs, different set of stuff they need to support. It would be probably just a scratch job just to say, hey, yeah, we have a Linux version, we're never going to update it, but yeah, you can use it if you want.
Right.
So I'd rather they didn't do it at all than doing a half-assed port that didn't really work that well.
Right. Now, going along with that, do you believe that we, as the Linux community or as Linux itself, are bad at marketing Linux? I know that Adobe will make decisions based on money, but
yep.
Do you think that maybe it would be better seen if we marketed Linux better?
Yeah, I think Linux we're not inherently bad at marketing it. I think it's hard to market Linux because Linux doesn't really exist as a proposition. Like, you don't sell Linux, you sell Ubuntu, you sell Fedora, you sell Manjaro. And like, Ubuntu has been a real driving force to try and bring third-party vendors to bring their apps to Linux with the Snap Store. They have a lot of open stuff, but they've been working for Ubuntu, not specifically for Linux. Like, their efforts are open. You can install snaps on other distros, even though most distros don't choose to ship with snaps installed by default. But they're marketing Ubuntu. And Fedora is marketing Fedora, and Manjaro is marketing their own laptops with Manjaro installed. And I think the problem is it's the eternal fragmentation problem, which is, in my eyes, not really an issue in terms of choice and user comprehension of the Linux platform. But in terms of marketing, it is a real handicap, I think. And we would probably need a governing board organization or something to try and drive the adoption of Linux as a whole and trying to explain to people what is Linux and what's a distribution and why you should choose distribution X, Y, or Z, and like being some kind of an umbrella over the marketing efforts of other Linux distros. But I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. So we're not necessarily bad at marketing Linux because we talk about it all the time and we try to bring people in. We try to talk about it to people that don't know about it. And most of the community tries to let people discover it by themselves. They're not too pushy about it. But in terms of real like corporate marketing, I don't think we have a product to market. I think we have multiple ones and the efforts are not coordinated.
Right. It's always been, to me, the biggest strength and the biggest weakness of Linux is the fragmentation. I think we would benefit some from being organized and being able to say, if you want to try Linux, this is, I mean, maybe not one distribution to say, hey, this is the one to rule them all, but this is the one we suggest you try as somebody coming new to Linux. And it would take that kind of a foundation like you're talking about.
Yeah, I could see some kind of governing organism that would provide companies that were willing to switch to Linux with some counsel. Like, okay, what are your use cases? What are you using? Do you need stability? Do you need bleeding edge? Are you mostly developers or accountants? And they would be in charge of recommending a specific distro. Like, okay, you need super hard server stability, you take a Debian distro. You need super bleeding edge for developers, you maybe use Manjaro, or we're going to accompany you to install Arch or something. And give them training. But we kind of need that governing board instead of having like Ubuntu say, hey, use me, or Manjaro, hey, buy laptops with me installed. Because you don't explain what's the advantage of Linux, you explain what's the advantage of Manjaro over other Linux distros. And if you don't already know Linux, and if you have doubts, all you see is a bickering crowd of people like trying to draw the thing to themselves, and in a friendly way. Obviously, it's not a real criticism, but they're trying to bring people to their own version of Linux, which is normal. But people coming from the outside are probably very confused by that.
Yep, they are. I agree. Have you ever attended any Linux conferences?
No. I almost went to Guadec this year because, well, my holiday plans got cancelled and I was thinking of going to Greece anyway, so it was in Thessaloniki, I think, in Greece. I almost booked the tickets, but financially it was just a little bit too tight. But I'm probably going to try to do it this year, maybe not Guadec, maybe another one. Problem is, in Europe, there are not that many Linux conferences. I think it's mostly the GNOME or Plasma or conferences, mostly for desktop environments, but the real Linux-focused conferences are mostly in the US and coming from Paris, or, well, at least I would have to fly from Paris because my city doesn't have a big airport enough to bring me to New York or anything. It's going to be a little bit expensive and a bit hard to squeeze that in. But if there's something organized in Europe, I'm going to try to go there, yeah, because I think I can meet a lot of people that I can talk about, like making content, creating stuff, and getting some new opinions, and it would be really nice.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is just getting to meet people personally and talking to them, talking to other people that really enjoy the same things you're enjoying. That is a huge part of the conferences, and I've only been to one, but I would recommend it to anybody.
Yeah, definitely need to try this. Yeah.
So where would you place yourself in the realm of open source software? Are you on close to the side where you only use open source software and that's all you want to use, or are you on the pragmatic side of use the best tool for the job, somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, I'm mostly on the pragmatic side. If there's an open source alternative available, I will try to use it. If it doesn't work for me, at least, I'm going to try to use something else. I mean, there's DaVinci Resolve. Everybody's saying, use DaVinci Resolve. It's great. It's fantastic. I'm happy with Kdenlive. I don't want to use a closed source video editor to make videos about Linux. But hey, I'm using Steam. It's not open source. I'm using a lot of video games. They're not open source. I'm using proprietary blobs for my NVIDIA card or for my Wi-Fi driver. And I mean, that doesn't bother me too much. If there were open source alternatives that work just as fine, I would use the open source alternatives. But when there isn't, I'm going to use the tool that I chose, and I'm going to use what's available, open source or not.
Right. Well, for years I edited with Kdenlive, and I did recently switch over a few months ago to DaVinci Resolve. And although Kdenlive is a great program, DaVinci Resolve has so many features that take it to another level, that it is an awesome program. It does work on Linux. If you want to use it for Linux, you probably should pay for it, just because it doesn't have some of the limitations with the free version.
The codec support is not that great in the free version. I think it doesn't take MP4s or something. There's something like that, yeah.
But I think that you should use whatever tool you want to use for that job. So if you choose to use an open source tool, and there are many open source tools that I use in my daily workflow, but I don't think people should be criticized for wanting to use something else that may not be open source software.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I get the drive to be fully open source and only support companies that focus on open source. It's very nice, and if you can do it, obviously go for it. Mm-hmm. But people will use what they want to use, and there's no need to spit in their faces just because they decided to go with something that maybe you don't like. It's just a matter of choice.
Yep. So years ago, when I switched to Linux, I switched because of flexibility, because, like you, I was trying to customize Windows with themes and everything. And I think I had to reinstall Windows like 1 billion times because I messed it up. So I switched to Linux because of those reasons, because I could customize it the way I wanted to. Over the years, I have found the Linux community to be awesome. And that, to me, is what drives my love for Linux now. But what drives your passion and your love for Linux today?
It's probably the fact that it moves really fast. I mean, from the inside, once you're used to it, you probably think it doesn't have that many evolutions, developments, or stuff like that. But really, I think there's something new every day on the Linux side of things. Like, there's a new update to a program, there's a new driver on the Linux kernel, there's a new company that's showing interest in open sourcing stuff or working with the Linux kernel, there's a new debate that can be really aggressive or not on some feature. I'm not going to go into the whole ZFS file system debate, but there's always something going on, something that is either proposed, judged, or tore down, or there's always something to talk about, something to learn. And so the main drive is probably, something that moves fast, that moves all the time, and something that makes you learn stuff. Because using Linux is a learning experience. You learn to adapt to other stuff, and you also learn to try new stuff. Once you made the first jump to not using the system you've been used to for 10, 15, 20 years. When you started to use something new, you get that itch to try other new stuff and not stay stuck on what you know. And I think that's very important, and that's what keeps me going to Linux.
Yep. Well, it's in the same realm. If I try a new desktop environment or if I try a new distro, I will usually try it in the default settings. Yeah. So I can see what the developers were trying to do, even though I may not be comfortable with it. Like, that's not my workflow. You're able to learn other things that maybe you didn't realize before. Maybe say, hey, this is a little bit better than what I'm doing, or maybe not. You may find that it's not better. But I think it's important to have an open mind going into it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a very important mindset to have when you want to try Linux. If you go in with, I want something that works exactly like Windows, but not being Windows, it's not going to work, because it's never going to work exactly like Windows or like Mac OS X. There's always going to be some differences. So when you try Linux, or when you want to keep using Linux, you have to keep an open mind. You have to forget a little bit, like unlearn stuff that you learned and learn some new stuff. And I think people mainly don't give it enough time. A lot of people say, hey, I installed Linux, I had a problem, I went back to Windows in 2 hours. You're like, well, you didn't try Linux. You just installed it, but you didn't give it a shot. You blocked at the first problem, which it's normal, it happens. But you can't really say Linux is trash just because you've used it for 2 hours and had a problem with it. You need to be willing to adapt a little bit and think a little bit. And that's not for everybody. Some people really don't want to do that. They just want something that works and that they know, and that's all right. But if you want to give a shot to a new thing, you have to be willing to unlearn and to relearn some new stuff.
Yep, agreed. So do you have any, do you do any coding or scripting at all?
I used to a little bit. I do a bit of bash scripting, but nothing really complicated. Like, it's mostly driver install scripts that I do. So basically a long list of command lines, no conditions, not anything specific. And I used to code a lot on my old Casio calculator. Yeah, when I was young, I had nothing else to do during the holidays when it was raining, and I coded like huge graphical programs for the Casio. But no, I don't do like web development or C#, C++, whatever. I can read and understand some languages about like PHP, JavaScript, CSS, but I wouldn't be able to write a full program. Yeah.
Right. Well, everybody, dude, has different talents and different levels of time that they can spend. There's a lot of people that are in the Linux community who maybe can't write code or don't feel that they can contribute in anything like that's meaningful. But what would you say to somebody who wants to contribute, but maybe doesn't have coding experience, maybe doesn't have this experience over here? But what would you say to people that it's the best way for them to get involved in Linux to contribute?
Well, as you said, it all depends on what the person is talented for. What can he do? So some people are really good at writing marketing speeches or promoting stuff or making videos. Some are really talented at talking to other people, maybe doing press relationships, and some can code, some can create assets, icons, or themes. And I think you really have to look into what time you're willing to invest to contribute. And if it's none, maybe you can contribute a little bit of money instead if you can. And if you really can't contribute any money or any time, well, just using the software and talking to people about it is just something that's useful, or maybe bug testing. I know a lot of developers are hard pressed to have some really deep bug testing, and I think they would like people to say, hey, give me the latest beta version, just package it, I'll install it, and I'll tell you all about it. And
yep.
Yeah, bug reporting is not that hard. You don't need to be a developer to do it. You just need to be precise in what you tried and what you think made the application crash or what made the bug appear. It's not really complicated. You just list the steps that you did and the result you got and the result you were supposed to get. So anybody can really do that. And I think it's a good way to contribute, because most people say, hey, this app is super buggy, don't use it. But it's probably because people that encounter the bugs know how to fix them like by themselves and don't really tell everybody else how to correct them.
Yep. Well, everybody has something to give. So I think, again, I'll go back to what we talked earlier about, is just doing it, just being there, just making the time to do it.
Yep.
That is like one of the most important things. And using Linux, like you said, is contributing. So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of people that are making programs for Linux or just making the Linux kernel are not specifically making it because they want people to applaud them or say, hey, yeah, you're making apps for Linux, you're an awesome dude. They're making it because they just want people to have an alternative and a solution, and because it's fun to make it. If it wasn't fun, most people would stop doing it, apart from the corporate paid contributors. But
yep.
people that contribute their free time to create Linux or programs are doing it because it's fun and they like having people use their stuff. So just use it. It's reward. It's a good reward for the developer. And if you can spare a few dimes, you can also contribute that way if you don't really have time or any perceived skills that you could use. You can always donate a little bit if you have the capacity.
Agreed.
I mean, that's what I do. I don't do bug reporting for any programs because I don't really have the time to do it. I can't find the time to do it. I can code. And I mean, making videos is my way to promote some programs and some stuff. And for other stuff, I just donate a little bit through Patreon to Elementary OS, to other stuff.
But your channel is a huge contribution to Linux. That is your talent. That is your time that you're giving, is creating these videos and promoting Linux and promoting the good things about it. And yeah, that is awesome.
Yeah, I guess that can help to put the spotlight on lesser known applications or lesser used apps. I think I've painted a pretty good picture of Kdenlive. Like everybody was saying, yeah, Kdenlive crashes all the time. Kdenlive is trash. I'd never used that program, and just the fact that I've been using it for 2 years, and yes, I've had some issues, but I've been using it for 2 years, and I kept with it is because it works. It's a good program.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a small contribution as well, and it's probably only contributing to people that already know the existence of these programs and of Linux, but it's still something.
Still something. So if you could change one thing about Linux, what would it be?
Good question. One thing in particular. Like right now, I would say compatibility with USB Wi-Fi dongles, because mine has been driving me completely crazy lately. I have to unplug it and replug it like 3 times every time I boot my computer for it to work. It's a nightmare. But apart from that, I don't really know what I would change. I mean, it's been working well for me. I never really had any issues, any big issues with it that I couldn't fix easily. I guess it would be more like changing the outlook of the community on some stuff. Like mainly the thing I would like people to do is making tutorials that are written and not command line. Because the image of Linux is hard to do. Linux is command line only, is because most tutorials online are written with command line, because that works for 99% of the distros. And it's easier to write than take a screenshot of doing it on KDE, doing it on GNOME, doing it on Mate, on Cinnamon. You just write the command line, you say, hey, if you're using Ubuntu, 3 comments. If you're using Fedora, these 3 comments. And you don't have to read detail every step of the way. But I think if people took a little bit more time to do that, it would probably work a lot better, because people would lose that image of, hey, you can't do anything on Linux apart from using the command line to fix your problems. Most of the time, a graphical solution exists. It's just that it's way easier to do a tutorial just writing the command lines. But it's not something about Linux as an OS specifically.
Hey, that question, can go into so many directions, but I think that is giving people the reason to use Linux, because you hear it all the time. I mean, I had said something to a guy about it at work, and at work, people do look at me like I'm crazy. But I had said to this guy, hey, about Linux, and he had said, do you still have to install it using the command line? I'm like, no, you don't.
no, not since 2002, maybe.
Right. So I think that's, that is a pretty important thing. So thinking back on the reasons that you chose to run Linux, do those reasons still apply today, or are they the same reasons?
Well, the reason that I started using Linux back in 2006 was just mainly I wanted to tweak and customize, and that's no longer true. I like the default Elementary OS look, I like the default GNOME look with a few extensions here and there, but I don't really want to tinker with themes, icons, and tweak everything to my liking anymore. it's not really something that I enjoy anymore. But I think the reasoning of using something that is, well, free, not as in not expensive, not paid for, something that is open source and has a few values in it that I respect and that I want to encourage, these reasons still hold up. And I mean, now that the fact I'm doing my Linux channel also kind of locks me into Linux, to be honest, but it's not like I would want to use anything else. Like every time I have to boot Windows to start Steam and play my games, I just want to rip the computer apart. I have updates all the time. I've got the start menu that doesn't show up when I press the Windows key. Programs that look out of place all the time. My Wi-Fi keeps crapping out. It's like, no, it's not an OS I want to use. And I want to use something that works for me. And that was one reason why I went back to Linux in 2018, something that I knew would work and I knew I would like. And those reasons still hold up today.
Very nice. Well, I think that looking back on it, you mentioned about changing the icons and stuff like that. I had mentioned about changing windows and themes and everything. And I think part of the draw was that you couldn't change windows. Like there was, and that was part of the draw of finding something that you could. It was because you couldn't change it. And now that you have the opportunity to change it, I'm in the same boat where when I first came to Linux, I was changing all kinds of themes and messing around with it. And now it's to the point where, I could change it if I want to, but I don't need to.
Yeah, like I remember playing with Compies the first time it released, like making my windows burn when I closed them, or making the super cube that turned and all the windows were jelly, and it was incredible, and I was having so much fun with that, and all my friends were like, "Wow, what the hell are you using?" And I was like, "You can't do that on your computer," but
I love it.
But yeah, I would never do that anymore. There, it's just too much. I just want something sober and nice, and having the option to say, hey, like this icon I really don't like, I'm going to change it. That's fine, that's good. But yeah, I don't really want to install like huge theme packs anymore or tweak completely the way my desktop looks. It's not for me anymore.
All right. Is there anything else you want to share with people?
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything, I think. All
right. How can people get in touch with you, Nick?
Well, as always, I'm on Twitter at the Linux EXP. I'm pretty active there. I'm on Mastodon, a little less active there, but I will answer if people ask some questions. And obviously the YouTube comments or the website. It's not as up to date as I would like it to. I think I try to write one article a month. I would like to be a little bit more prolific there, but I don't really have the time. But yeah, if you want to read, watch stuff, or ask me a question, the best way is probably on Twitter or Mastodon.
Awesome. I want to just take a minute and thank you for all of the contributions that you have made to Linux and the community. Your YouTube channel is a huge part of how people see Linux. And, when you look at content out there, you want it to be, you see these Microsoft videos about the terminal and how great that video was. Your videos allow people to see Linux in an awesome way. And that is a very big contribution. And I just want to say thank you for that.
Well, no, thank you. And thank everybody that watches them, because if they didn't, I would probably have stopped by now. So,
all right. I appreciate you joining me. That is going to wrap it up. Thank you all for joining us this week as we spotlight the best thing about Linux, our community. Until next time, long live Linux.